Hello everyone, my name is Craig and welcome back to the channel and a bonus content episode for you today. I'm going to go over my thoughts on the Elite 2.0 series so far. I don't know if I've already uploaded a video on this, probably not. I think I deleted the other takes of this video a long time ago, but I bought some blasters since then. I'm going to go over each pick that I've made so far, right? This is going to be off of the blaster that I have reviewed so far, not over what is already out there and all of that stuff. I'd like to base my opinion off of what I've already reviewed so far, and then draw a conclusion from there, right? So we'll go over each blaster that I've picked, or each blaster that I've reviewed that I have physically right here, and give you my thoughts on Elite 2.0. So starting out, what is Elite 2.0? Well, Elite 2.0 are blasters that come in this like aqua-ish blue and orange color scheme, designed to replace the old or improve upon the old Elite series. Spoiler alert, they did not do that at all. In some blasters they did, but in a lot of cases, no, they did not at all. But it's basically a rebranding of that. There's a lot of reskin of the blasters, all of this stuff, and it's designed to be an improvement, more tactical rails, all of this stuff. But what I've really came to find with Elite 2.0 is that there's just a lot of corner cutting, and there's a lot of releases of old blasters that either weren't improved upon or nobody asked for a repaint of, and it's still just as garbage as the original. So we'll do that. They'll come with new Elite Dark. I didn't grab the darks, but it's basically the same color scheme with these. Where can you find Elite 2.0 blasters? Right now, you could probably find them on store shelves because it's what's taking over the market right now. You can find them on Amazon, probably on eBay, all of that stuff. It is in the meta right now as far as what Nerf is doing. So that's a brief overview of what Elite 2.0 is. Now, over all the blasters that I've reviewed, in no particular order, we're going to start off with primaries. I'm going to give a brief overview of each blaster. I'm not going to do a firing demo, but I'll give you my thoughts and stuff on it as well. First up is the Elite 2.0 Commander SD6. That's what this one is. This is a primary. It's spring powered, cylinder fed, with the capacity of 6 rounds. It is semi-auto slam fire enabled blaster. Pretty cool. If we started out front, it did have an end strike barrel lug, and it does have a stock attachment point for that. Plus it has a 1, 2, 3 tactical rails on there. Holy tactics, Batman. I don't know what you're gonna put on the grip right here, but it's cool that they have it, and I love the modularity of this, right? To prime blaster, you do that, and for slam fire, you do that, right? The slam fire works very well, actually, for a blaster of this. It works a bit better than the old Alpha Trooper slam fire. I really like it, but for 6 shots you're gonna blow off that load pretty quickly. But I like that it rotates the barrel with the prime, so that way you don't have to. So you can either choose to whip it around the corner and slam fire if you need emergency, or continue in its single fire mode. The proportions are a little bit weird for me, for my taste, and with the attachments that I have, I'd rather keep it in this form because the attachments actually kind of make it look and feel much weirder. But you could totally make this a primary blaster. It fires very well, and yeah, very reliable. I'm glad that I got this Commander as the primary. This is really the only primary blaster that I have so far in the Elite 2.0 series. So far, we're on a positive note. Dart velocity, I don't know because I haven't thrown this through a chronograph yet. And right now my chronograph is broken, so I can't chrono data this, but it is in line with other Elite 2.0 blasters, if not slightly hotter than Nerf Elite blasters on the market right now. This is going to be considered Nerf Elite blaster, even though it's Elite 2.0. But a really solid pick, and I would recommend. That is the Commander, a pretty solid blaster. Next up, in no particular order, now we're going to get into like all the pistols and sidearms, because that's really all else that I have. It's the Elite 2.0 Volt. It's basically the Elite 2.0 Night Finder. Nobody asked for this, neither did I. It's a single shot, spring powered blaster in the Elite 2.0 series. And yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that is. If you ever shot the old Night Finder or anything basically of this form factor, it's the exact same. Starting up front, you'll have one front loading barrel. The capacity of this blaster is 1 dart. One tactical rail here, one tactical rail on here. Pretty cool that they added tactics to that. That's an improvement over the original Night Finder. It has this style priming handle, pretty cool. Pretty decent proportions. I think a little bit big, but if you ever shot Night Finder, it's pretty compact. You could even make a custom holster for this. Shoots all right. The velocity is actually, I do have the velocity here. With the elite darts, it shoots about 70 FPS, so right smack on that 70 FPS par. Adventure Force darts shot about 65 feet per second. X-Shot full-length darts were 70 FPS. Most darts at about 64 to 69. Screamer darts, it shot about 44 feet per second. Right, so fine. It's pretty much in line with other Nerf blasters, and actually shooting almost closer to the primary range, which is incredible for a primary. So that's all the positives about it. Getting into the negatives about this, because I actually don't really like this blaster. One, also it comes with a little laser sight thing. Notice I didn't mention that on there, probably because I forgot it, but I also didn't mention it because it's a negative and totally forgettable. It requires 2, I think, AA batteries to get to it. You have to knock this little thing. You have to get like a pen or something, push that in, and then this whole compartment comes out, put in your batteries, and then you're ready to do that. I could not get that, a pen or anything to strike that, or with enough pressure or force, or if I did, by the time I was pushing down to this, the pen or object that I was using was wobbling too much that it's not going to open. So I gave up on it, which is, dude, just use either screwless or thumb screw, or just make me go fetch a screwdriver. Don't do this if it's going to be that difficult. So because of that, that's a negative, especially when this is definitely a selling point. Also, the on-off switch is on an on-off switch, not a trigger, is inside of the trigger mechanism, and it slides up and down like this, and it's I don't know if it works well because I don't have batteries in it because of that. And this is a horrible location. Like, my finger is going to grab up against that when I go to prime or something. It's a horrible design. I don't get that. And this, basically, the whole like Night Finder aspect of this is a total drop in this, and this is what made me think, Elite 2.0, what are you doing? Right, this is part of the cutting corners. I don't get this as the selling point. The rest of the blaster, there's really no reason to avoid it, except for maybe you could go slimmer, or if you're going to go this big, probably go like something like, even this could be used as your sidearm at that, for a capacity of 1 shot, right? So yeah, that's a big negative, especially for that. Also, it does have dart storage and stuff in there. A big negative, but you could probably, as I said in my review, you could probably overlook that, look past that, and it'd be fine. But in general, it especially that from a marketing standpoint, that yikes, right? So that's why this blaster not really that great. Right, get into the Elite 2.0 Prospect. I absolutely hate this thing. Right, it's a spring-powered single shot with 4 capacity blaster with a smart AR system. I'll get into that, right? And it's spring-powered. right? So brief overview. Up front, there's no end-strike barrel load, but it is a capacity of 4 shots each barrel in that. It's supposed to work on a smart AR, so whatever barrel you load, it should fire out of. Even with my retesting of that, well, although my retesting, I think, disproved it a little bit, but out of that, the smart AR system does not work reliably at all. Actually, it's a piece of crap, honestly. And that's pretty, I don't think I need to go into further detail on this. Watch my original review on that for it. It performed a little bit better. If you watch that review video, in that sense, my firing, but not that much. So this I don't really get. Up front, it's not an end-strike tactical rail. It's just this big old see-through scope on this that doesn't help anything. They just could have just chopped that off and it would have been fine. I would have preferred something bare here rather than that. That's just a waste of plastic. This whole thing is a waste of plastic. But and then going to this grip is not proportional to the rest of the blaster. Like, look at that. And look at this. This is a big old chunky like backup pistol, and they're trying to do 4 shots when you could probably go to like a trio, which is coming up, or a triad at this one, which I would probably recommend both blasters over the Prospect QS4 here. I recommend that over this. Its firing velocity, I don't even remember. It wasn't outstanding. And yeah, it just didn't perform well, and the proportions are horrible. Like, look at this. I don't know how many blasters I've reviewed that have grips that are not proportional to the rest of the blaster. It's not that hard to do. I get that you want it like big feeling and all of that, but like take some ergonomics into account. Like, come on now, right? So it's literally just wasted plastic, not enough plastic, and then literally all you could have just done was make this a single shot blaster and it would have been fine. But yeah, for capacity, the smart AR does not work very well. There's I had a lot of malfunction, like shotgun fire, all of that stuff. So that's the Prospect for you. Next up is the Elite 2.0 Trio. Now, I've done a review on this. I did have recorded a re-review on this blaster. And my re-review actually changed my opinion a little bit on this one. But not by much. So it's a spring-powered single-shot blaster with capacity of 3, basically the Elite 2.0 version of a Triad, but with a sleeker, compact design. Started up front, single shot with smart AR system. In my original testing, smart AR didn't work that well at all. In my re-review testing of it, it actually worked a lot better. There were some occasional hiccups on that one, so I wouldn't say the smart AR is that reliable. However, I have gotten comments saying people that my Trio works fine. Maybe I have a lemon product, or maybe it was just something at that time. But three capacity of 3 shots, smart AR, single shot, right? Up top is a tactical rail. Awesome that they added that weird little placement, a sling mount. If you're gonna go on that, I'm gonna make a custom holster before I ever put this on a sling, right? I don't get that, especially with this, but I do like the form factor a bit on this. It feels more traditional, but it also feels big. The grip here is actually fairly proportional to this, but I think they could have used a little bit more of a grip, because this is a pretty beefy package. This is actually bigger than the Triad. Triad is a bit thicker, but this is actually bigger and maybe slimmer for concealment, but it's definitely bigger. And then you have the T-style priming handle. I note in my original review that was a wicked big plunger pull, and I didn't see from the eye test a significant FPS boost to warrant that big of a plunger tube. However, if we go into velocity with the Trio, with standard elite darts, 72 feet per second, and that's generally chronoing just the first barrel. I did do some other general chrono tests with that. Any blaster really, unless if they make it absolutely perfect, it's gonna have slight FPS difference in each barrel. 72 feet per second with Nerf elite darts, that's on par with something like the Commander should be, right? So that's shooting pretty hot. 67 with Adventure Force, 74 feet per second with Zuru X-Shot full-length darts. That's up and above most Nerf primaries on the market. This is a backup pistol, right? 67 only with the Mustang darts. Oh, I think this is where my chronograph failed, because I don't have complete chrono data on that, but that's pretty much all I have right now. That's right, because I was recording it in my chronograph and decided to kick the bucket in the middle of it. So yeah, but generally from those results, generally the firing performance of this blows me away. So it actually does warrant that big of a plunger tube in that. Would I still recommend a Triad? I would. There's still something about the Trio that I don't trust, probably because it's Elite 2.0. Initially, this made my opinion of Elite 2.0 negative. This one actually brings out maybe a little bit more, but still this makes it more neutral. I don't trust the AR system just because it's so inconsistent, and just a form factor on this, I'd probably rather use a Triad than this thing on that. And it's just a little bit of unnecessary plastic on there. Cool that it has tactical rails, maybe could have been a little bit better on proportion, but the performance speaks for itself. Actually fairly a decent pick. That's the Trio. Next up is the Elite 2.0 Ace, basically the Elite 2.0 Jolt. Heading up to the overview, it's a single shot front loading blaster that you cock back and boom, you're ready to fire once. There's no tactical rails or anything like that on there. Up front is, I don't know, is this supposed to be a sight? I don't know why you're putting something like that on there. Somebody did mention in the comments of like the Jolt sight attachment, which I think was just funny as heck, but definitely still a waste of plastic. There's nothing else to do. There's completely a lack of a grip. Like, I have incredibly small hands compared to the average size, and my hand is failing to see where to grip this, right? My pinky is just yikes, right? It's getting smashed up on there. So lack of grip really on that one. The trigger, that's the trigger sound without it being fired. Yikes, right? So the trigger in this area, I think I like the space on that. Just feels very weird. Is just more unnecessary plastic, and the grip is just not what it could be, right? I think if you just shove this up a little bit more and then extend this just a tiny bit more, it probably would have been fine with that. But that really made a complaint. That was a big complaint of mine going through the review. However, the firing velocity of this actually isn't that great. I don't know if I had a lemon product or not, but I did throw it up on a chronograph, and I do chronograph data about average of 6 darts, right? Just generally, because that's a common theme with especially a lot of sidearms and stuff. 6 is a good number. Some people do 12, 15. I think 6 is a good amount. So with Nerf Elite darts, the Jolt achieve average velocity of 52 feet per second, which for a backup pistol, that's all right. That's still on the much softer side, but definitely below the Elite par, where some of these other ones were shooting hotter than the Elite primary par. This is shooting more like a dedicated backup pistol. Adventure Force darts firing at 46 feet per second. A Mustang darts at 39, X-Shot at 49, Screamers at that, and it did fire and strike darts, but at 35 feet per second. So the velocity firing performance isn't really that great. You might be able to get better performance out of a Jolt. However, my personal Jolt, I don't know if it's a lemon from over time or because of dry firing, actually fired worse than the Ace. I'm gonna assume that that's still my product, because my Jolt was firing average of about 50 FPS, most of the time lower and very occasionally higher. So, but it's still not that great, but it is all right for an emergency close range blaster. fairly reliable on that, but just there's still a lot with that performance. It's not spectacular with that, and it's just, I don't know, but I would recommend getting an Ace over some of the other things that we currently have here. But that is the Ace, kind of a negative on that one. Next, the last blaster that I have to go over is the Elite 2.0 Slash. Now, I recently did a review on this blaster. It's a single shot spring powered blaster. Starting up front, there is no N-Strike barrel lug, of course. You front load, one shot, you pull it, you're ready to go back. No tactical rails, very compact package. A little bit more of a grip on this, but this is where the plunger tube is. Quite honestly, they could have taken time to really make a better grip and just put the plunger tube inside here and made this bigger. They could have totally done that. They might have gotten a performance boost out of it, but pretty simple package. It looks very, very weird, like an alien gun. Actually looks like more like a Star Trek phaser if you've seen the original series. That's kind of what this front end reminds me of, right? And you kind of want to hold it like that. Right. But actually, the main thing that also got me was this is basically just a reskin of the Nerf Alpha Strike Fang, or is it Stinger, I think. Stinger or something, whatever is that single shot, it's literally exactly this, because I bought it at Dollar General, and they had this and the other thing on there. So, yeah, Hasbro not getting creative with the marketing on that, and just in my brain, because I work at retail store, I just find I find that as a very cheap method to really try to get in money, especially when both of it is, like, if Adventure Force or Darza or like BuzzFeed did that, they could get away with that for money. It's still questionable, but when Nerf does it with their own series, yikes, especially the exact same format. Like the Volt probably varies because of its performance and stuff, right? But this, there is literally no variance, and if I recall from the research, I believe the chrono velocity is exactly the same. So I don't get it. It's a reskin, right? A lot of these are Jolt reskins. Velocity was pretty all right. Fired decently well. Probably could have done better. I don't have chrono data for this one. This is one out of like 2 of these that I don't have chronograph data for, because I reviewed this after my chronograph broke. So I'm interested in seeing what it is like, but I'm not going to dry fire this anymore because it has a horrible dry firing sound. But generally for this, maybe an Ace might actually be better, and I kind of crapped on the Ace here a little bit in this video. But yeah, that is all of the blasters in the Elite 2.0 series that I have reviewed so far. So we're going to basically get into the to buy or not to buy section before I completely conclude everything. Actually, yeah, we'll do it that way. I meant to do a conclusion then that, but as long as it's in the video, it doesn't really matter. So in the to buy section, I'm going to put, starting off first, no particular order, I'm going to start with the Commander. I'm pretty sure there are better blasters for that, but this is actually a pretty good package. And if you're looking for a primary in Elite 2.0, I would recommend the Commander. Maybe not over some other things. There's like the Turbine, the Phoenix, all of that stuff. Probably the Turbine and maybe the Echo, I think, are actually better options than this one, but I'm not looking into the future on this one, so I'm dealing with what I have right now. So this blaster actually doing pretty well. Slamfire is a great option regardless, as long as you have a decent issue capacity. I'd say 6 is probably like the lowest capacity that you want to have Slamfire for. I'd still shake my head a little bit and ask, like, why are you using 6-star? But it works very well. There's rails everywhere, and there's an N-Strike barrel attachment and stock attachment point, so you can customize this into there, or you can run it as a secondary, and this velocity is fairly decent. I find it pretty reliable. I would definitely recommend you go out and buy this if you must. But buy an Elite 2.0 blaster. This is probably a staple I was really impressed with. Also, thank you all again for on the Elite 2.0 Commander review. That's the video that I have the most views on by a long shot with 1.7 thousand views. Thank you so much. That came out of nowhere. That literally came out overnight with that amount. Thank you all. But yeah, that is the Commander, our first 2-buy. Also, I'm going to go over with our 2-buys and then not to buy. With the 2-buy, I'm going to put the Elite 2.0 Trio. Right, the Elite 2.0 Trio, while I still don't trust the Smart AR system, it's still fairly decent. It's a great package, and you could get used to the ergonomics of this blaster. Plus, it has a tactical rail for a scope customization, right? And its performance is actually pretty darn good for what it is. I know that I trashed on it a little bit in my original review, but after a re-review, this is why I do re-reviews, y'all. Re-reviews, I took a step back and was like, maybe this blaster isn't that bad. Would I still trust something like a Triad over this? Yes. And that's probably where I would recommend doing this. If you must have Elite 2.0 for something like this and a secondary or emergency blaster, I would recommend the Trio right now until I find something that is better than that. I would recommend that, but overall, I'd still also recommend the Triad better than that. It has very similar velocity. Actually, it has better velocity, and I find that more reliable than this. But this is still a fairly solid option. I have my issues with it, but objectively, it looks like that it's actually pretty darn good. So that's the Trio, and that concludes all the 2-buy in the Elite 2.0 series of the blasters that I have to review. Now into the do not buy, obviously everything else. Start off with the Prospect. This is an absolute horrible blaster, right? I told you the Smart AR doesn't work. The grip is not proportional to that, and there's just unnecessary plastic. The firing performance is not stellar in any way. It's not unique to anything else except for it's maybe uniquely bad, but it doesn't stand out. There's no reason to buy this objectively or even in my opinion at all. And this is going to be the first one, quite honestly, out of all of these blasters that I'm reviewing. I'd say you purchase any of the other ones, no matter how bad they are, over this one. Do not buy a Prospect. Please don't do that, right? This blaster is pretty bad. Even in my other testing of it, I did a lot of testing later on after it, but yeah, it's still pretty bad. Let's get this hunk of plastic out of here. Next up in the do not buy section, I'm actually going to put the Ace. I'd recommend using the Trio over an Ace because of that better velocity, better, a little bit better ergonomics, and better firing velocity, of course. Assuming that my Jolt was a lemon on that, you might get outdueled by the original Jolt for this. This is literally just a Jolt reskin. A lot of these blasters are Jolt reskin in the Elite 2.0 series. But my main problems with this were unnecessary. I don't get this at all. I never understood. I get looking cool, but this doesn't look cool on this at all, right? If you're gonna do a flit sight, if you're gonna do like a red dot edge sight like that, you put it all the way back here on a pistol. Yes, not all the way up here. That doesn't look cool. The firing velocity was pretty bad on this, and the lack of a grip, just that ergonomics makes me want to like chuck this blaster after using it for a while. But there's definitely worse options, but there's a whole lot of better options. So I would not recommend buying an Ace unless if you absolutely have to. Absolutely have to. So that is the Ace. Pretty bad, unfortunately. Next up is the Elite 2.0 Slash, also on the do not buy list. Basically, I'd even recommend an Ace over the Slash. Unless if I find the firing velocity is just amazing on this thing. Just very, very weird. Doesn't look good. Like I would look at that, be like, that's a blaster I want to use. Even secondary, like cosmetics do matter at some point. At at least in my brain, they matter a little bit actually. Right, I do take performance over that, but if it's like the best performing blaster but looks bland, I'm probably going to customize it myself. I'm probably not going to actually use that because it just looks absolutely bland, right? And that's what this looks like, especially when it's reskin, exact same reskin. I get if it's like something like a Night Finder or this, or slightly different, maybe better, worse Jolt, but this, when you deliberately copy something else like this in another one of your series, Hasbro, in my brain, that irks me a little bit. I don't really like that. Even buying this blaster, I'm like, right. The firing performance and velocity isn't anything stellar for that, and I just think that it's weird ergonomically, but feels a little bit better than something like even like an Ace or that. But there's just no reason to buy this over even something like an Ace or anything else on this. So this is on a do not buy. Please don't buy it, even though that it's like $2. But please don't. All right, that's the Slash. The last one, unfortunately, in the do not buy section is the Elite 2.0 Volt, right? And right, with it being the single shot up here, let's go over the positives. And while we went over positive and negatives, let's go over why I'm not putting this in the to buy section. One, I'm not gonna say that it's reskin of a Night Finder, although in my brain, my marketing brain, I'd be like, really, why? Right? Nobody asked for that. But the firing velocity out of this, let me double check. The Volt was definitely not stellar. It was actually way more impressive than I thought. About 65 to 70 FPS for a backup pistol. That's actually probably the best backup pistol besides the Trio as far as velocity comes. But it's a single shot in this big old package. I do like the form factor. I do like that it is customizable with this tactical rail actually on the top or the bottom. But this light, man, is and this on-off switch for the light in the trigger guard is a complete no-go for me. That completely ruins this blaster for me in my opinion. I can't access the batteries with this, and just this is not gonna do this kind of trigger. No. Right? And especially if you're going at this type of package, I know there's a whole bunch of single shot on this one. You might as well go to a Trio. Look at that. That's almost 3/4 of the size right there in just a Trio, and it has a capacity of 3. Granted, it's still single shot, but it has a capacity of 3. At that point, you might as well just upgrade to a Commander as your secondary. Right, and that's another thing that I really never liked about so many single shot pistol blasters. I still find it very interesting why I buy so many of these, because not only is it cost effective and doesn't take up too much space right now, but I also like thinking, because I'm also a pistol guy myself, I'm not much of a rifler, although that doesn't mean I won't use a rifle, but we'll get into that another day. But what my issue really with it, I do find enjoyment in comparing other single shots to other single shots and be like, oh, interesting, see what they did there. But this doesn't provide anything else really unique, except for maybe better firing velocity than like 3 of the blasters that I just went over. And but still, that selling point of this light is just annoying. I would not recommend buying a Volt. Unless you absolutely have to. I would just say just buy a Trio, buy a Commander if you need to, right? So this Volt, Elite 2.0 Volt, you're also in the do not buy section. So now we went over buy or do not buy for every single blaster that I've reviewed. Let's get into a conclusion. Elite 2.0 was not a successor to Nerf Elite. And you might say to me, Craig, you don't have enough of a sample size to compare Elite to Elite 2.0. I would reckon that I do. Plus, I've felt other Elite blasters. I've watched enough reviews on that. I know what to expect out of Elite. And especially when a lot of these are pistols and stuff, I can compare it to a Jolt and a Triad all day, especially a strong arm. I can compare this to a strong arm or disruptor all day, right? So I do have that expectations, and I do know what Nerf standard is because I put that expectation into any blaster that I review, regardless of if it's actually Nerf Elite or even if it's Nerf in general. Nerf Elite 2.0, I don't believe is anything special. Now, I will look into a little bit of future here. There are a lot of blasters that I'm interested in reviewing. Maybe those will change because there's actually, in my opinion, there's going to be some really good ones coming up, and it might change my opinion a little bit, but there's also a lot more bad ones. If you thought some of these were bad, I think there's worse to come. We'll have to check them out ourselves to see. But based off of what I have, it's not an improvement over this. Really, one of the best things about Elite 2.0 right now, it is that it is accessible because it's on store shelves everywhere. That and like X-Shot Gel and just general X-Shot as well. Also, all the Fortnite Roblox stuff, that's always going to be on the shelves to attract customers like that. But Elite 2.0 is also accessible, and they're actually fairly cheap. Even granted, they even have the Nerf logo. Some of these, like I recall buying, I think I bought the Ace off of Amazon for about $4, including shipping, I think. Right? I bought this one Dollar General, heck, for total plus tax, maybe $2. I bought the Volt for maybe about 5, 6, 7 for that. And the Commander, I think, was maybe 12, right? Generally, a blaster of this package would go before tax, before even shipping or anything on that, would go for about 15. So it actually is pretty cost efficient. And that's something like with Nerf Alpha Strike, and they're doing really budget stuff, which I can't wait to review that and really see that marketing strategy compared to its performance. But because of that, there's a lot of negatives. Right now, I don't see a lot of the corners cut, but I also do in some cases. Like, there's just a lot of unnecessary plastic and just not enough plastic in a lot of areas on a lot of the blasters, like the Ace, unnecessary, not enough on the grip. Just probably maybe not enough, just weird proportions on this one, not enough plastic on this one. On this one, actually, I think this one was fine. The Prospect, unnecessary plastic, all of this, not enough plastic on that, right? And that's 3 out of 6 blasters out of this. And the only really good one out of this was the Commander, and it's a primary blaster out of this. So Elite 2.0 didn't do anything special, especially with its ammo type. It's just Nerf Elite darts, and they perform just the same, so you can call them Nerf Elite darts, not 2.0. But it has the accessibility going for it. A lot of them are more tactical on that. There are a lot of blasters that lack in that, where they probably could have had some. Firing velocity on some of them are pretty surprising. Like the Trio shooting at about 74 FPS and the Volt doing at about 69, 70, especially for backup options. Those are pretty good. The Commander shooting fairly well. I think it shot kind of soft. If not, actually, I think it shot normal primary range with that. But still nothing outstanding. It's nothing like a Flux or Menace or even a Triad. Triad, like literally, there's a couple times on the chronograph I got like 79 FPS out of the bottom barrel, which was the fastest. That's where all the air went through. 79 feet per second, y'all. holy cow, right? And that's beating out anything in the Elite 2.0 series. A lot of these are, again, just Jolt reskin, but they made it maybe better, maybe better in velocity, definitely worse in looks. They brought out the Night Finder, just why? They made maybe a better, probably still worse Triad. They're really trying to draw inspiration on that. They just flat out copied one of their other designs and repainted it, not even trying. This I don't understand. And then there's the Commander, which is actually fairly decent in that. So all around, from a marketing perspective, I don't get this really at all. I don't see the objective reasons to buy them. I don't see this, in my opinions, from trying these. None of these really stand out. Again, except for maybe the Commander, because that's been the best blaster so far. Probably not the best blaster I've touched. That belongs in X-Shot, but not bad so far. I Some of the blasters I'm impressed with, but a lot I'm not. And if you want a yes or no, is Elite 2.0 good or worth buying? I'm going to say no. Even with something as good as some of the blasters that I did praise, you could still be better off with other options or completely without them, in general. And I think that's the route that you as a consumer, that I would recommend that you go. It's still your decision. If you really like Elite 2.0, that's fine, right? Just note that if you start getting into competitive Nerf, or really if you start boasting about how Elite 2.0 is so good, just note with both of those, you're probably going to get shut down. Because a lot of the original, even for how good something like the Commander is, you're going to get shut down. I have an X-Shot blaster that shoots about 80 FPS. I can now do the Commander with a single shot blaster. Yes, with a single shot blaster, right? So in competitive nature, I already have you beat there. Elite 2.0 it's not anything spectacularly good. It's pretty average good, but there's also a lot of bad. Except for maybe like the Prospect, really, which I have the most issue with, even though I dunked on the Slash a bit too. Those ones I can forgive. Those ones I could forgive, and they have their negative, but there's nothing that's really superbly, incredibly bad. They just have a lot of their bad that outweighs a lot of good with their blasters. But it is still enough to say, as a series right now, Elite 2.0 isn't good. Don't buy, right? So I hope with all of that information, given that you guys can make an educated purchase decision on whether you want to buy Elite 2.0 or not. Definitely let me know your thoughts on Elite 2.0 in the comments down below. You might have completely different opinions than I do, which is fine. And I employ that, but just note, a lot of my reviews are objective on that. So if you comment something opinion based, I'll respect that. But if you comment something objective based that it doesn't, so far from my review, that's when you're going to hear something about that. So objectively, so far from what I've seen, no, don't buy Elite 2.0. So I'd still love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for your support. Continuing support. It's been a bit rough, especially with live. I've been not really rough, it's just been very busy. Lots of things I haven't been having time to buy. Money's not too much more of an issue than space and stuff for Nerf blasters now, but I just haven't had a whole lot of time to actually do reviews like this. So a new series overview for Elite 2.0 coming. Yes, definitely. This is one of the series that I want to try to review every single blaster in person. if I can. If not, I will do informative reviews. So my name is Craig. I'll see you guys in the next one.